Hi, I'm Jennifer Warren here, and I'm here to talk about the conference I just attended at the University of Montana. It was the Central and Southwest Asia Studies Center, and the conference was largely focused on the Middle East conflict, energy, and then there was some tech thrown in. But obviously, with what's happened between Israel and Hamas, that was really, a lot of the focal point. And I just want to highlight, offer some highlights of things that sort of struck me, because I said I would pull this together because it was a 2-day conference with many, many presentations. And I just want to note a few in light of what is going on in the world and my work a little bit, my talk a little bit. First, I just want to start with one of the first keynotes of the day was about the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, China, that part of the world. Now, you have to understand that the subject matter and the area of this conference is in what's called the stands. It's Central Asia, and which borders Russia, China, and the Middle East. So this study area is highly relevant. And Dr. Mehrdad Kia, who is from Iran originally, he is a foremost expert in the area. And I just want to run through a few things that he said. And his talk really starts about minute 50 in the video in my playlist. Basically, he was saying that, and he has slides, and it's a really excellent presentation if you want to get an overview of everything that's going on and how it all intersects. Basically, he was saying that Hamas had been planning this for months, and Hamas is a proxy for Iran. He also noted just that, there was an incident that it was actually on YouTube about where the money came for this. And basically, he was talking about that Hamas leaders were noted to be having left Tehran with bags full of money, like $22 million. And that they're a business. They're all staying in 7-star hotels and whatnot. Next was that he asks, why has Iran become so brazen? And his comment is that because of watching US moves, that the rest of the world watches what the US does and takes their cues that way. So a big flashpoint for this was the US leaving Afghanistan. We left Afghanistan in the summer of 2021. Note that Russia invades Ukraine in early 2022 as well. So the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the retreat, was a sign for the rest of the world that America was disengaged. And we left billions of arms for the Taliban. I'm noting his highlights. The other thing he noted was that in Afghanistan, women are not treated as humans, and that the Afghan women are brilliant, educated doctors, lawyers, over 50% of the population not being utilized, not being allowed to help. And then he also pivoted over to this sort of feminist revolution that was happening in Iran, and that there was these protests. And he was also saying that most of the population of Iran is the people are less than 30 years old, and they don't want to be ruled by these older men that are, waging wars. And he also just noted that, that this terrorism of Hamas is big business. It's money driven. And he asks, when was the last time Hamas built a university, a college, or a school? And that the other point is that Iran believes in asymmetric warfare, which is what we're witnessing. So he also talks about Russia a little bit, just that it's good. He agrees with the policy of the United States with Russia and the rest of the world, how we're keeping the pressure up. as should be. And then he goes on to discuss these Abraham Accords, which is where we were before Hamas struck Israel, that Saudi Arabia and Israel, there was movement to try to, strike some peace. And that had already happened with two countries through the Abraham Accords that started under Trump with Bahrain and the UAE. He now believes, and it was a path forward for peace. And look at when this moment is picked to foment violence, when Saudi Arabia and Israel may come to some peace terms. And Dr. Kia believes that now that these are on indefinite hold, and that, that the Middle East players are not going to want to continue, trying to strike peace up with Israel while there is bombing of going on, as we know. And also just that, Russia and China are probably happy about this because it keeps attention diverted off of them with this, what's going on in Gaza, which is all the more reason that this needs to end. So then the other thing I will note was a keynote by the Consul General of Israel from San Francisco, the Pacific West region. He was supposed to come to the conference, and obviously he did not because of what has happened. And so he did agree to a brief Zoom interview. And then the rest of the time was taken with Dr. Mehrdad and some others discussing what's going on. And I hope they post the Dr. Mehrdad's talk afterwards, because it was an amazing masterclass on the Palestinian issue, the history of it. And when you understand the history of it, you understand what is going on in a different way. So basically, though, just a few thoughts, because it was really an emotional time for the Consul General. And basically, he was just saying that, October 7 was an unprovoked war. He describes, some of the things that we've seen on the internet, and I'm not going to go into it. But it was, unfathomable terrorism. I can't even relay the things he was saying about, what was happening with Hamas dropping in and what was happening with people in their beds while they were asleep, and all of it. Basically, he was saying Hamas is ISIS, and that this was the bloodiest day for Jews since the Holocaust. And something that stuck with me was just that he said, we did not want this war. And also to the rest of the world, don't look away. And so now I will go to my talk a little bit. So I was the second day. So the first day was very focused on Middle East conflict, and then some, Central Asia discussions and things like that. My talk was on energy and geopolitics, and I was coming from chronicling what has happened with the rise of U.S. oil and gas production via shale. A lot of it happening from North Texas, which is where I am from. And so my takeaways from my talk, called Chronicles in Energy and Geopolitics, Past, Present, and Future Possibilities, just that U.S. oil and gas production is vital and necessary. It's a really important global economic engagement for us. Our technology is important, and we offer a diversification of energy source choice, which is greatly needed. And if you listen to my talk, you'll see that. And I approach this from some sort of a finance economic point of view, and watching all the developments in shale and all the entrepreneurs and leaders that have made this happen. And I just discuss, that now with with the United States, we're like 13% of global oil supply, and that matters a lot because there are other choices besides OPEC and Russia. And then the other thing I want to note, just something that I thought about in light of everything that's happening is, I heard there was this quote last summer by Putin after he invaded Ukraine, and he was sort of getting at, that Putin believes it's the hard assets, of oil and gas, and not tech. He's kind of taking a swipe at, a lot of the large tech firms, saying that it's not these intangible assets, where it's at are these hard assets and resources, basically. And we know that there's this idea of, the race to the bottom with resources. We see this with minerals development and, what's happening in this energy transition and all that. And what I would just say is that it's not just these hard assets, it's human capital, as represented by innovation. And I think this video I have with Wendy Bradley kind of gets at that. And it might be a way forward in the future, to think about what that does. The availability of the internet and information. Mind you, there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of, emotion flying around right now with what's happening. But the ability to disseminate information and connect is really important. Let's see. So the other thing I want to note is that in foreign policy circles, I hear a lot about this idea of a multipolar world. And what I can say, what I heard from Dr. Kia, that his point of view about the rest of the world, how the rest of the world is viewing us, is in opposition to this liberal intellectual idea of a multipolar world, that the rest of the world is still taking cues from the United States. So all the more reason to be discerning, and all the more reason to project unity. And, just that freedom and truth must prevail. And I think that kind of came through in my talk as well, a little bit through the back door. And just, that America's going to have to dig deep within. And even Dr. Kia said, America eventually, this is something that Churchill said, America will do what's right when all options are exhausted. And hopefully we don't come to that. And then the last thing I will say, the Montana National Guard spoke first, and they are doing really boots on the ground projects of humanitarian and economic consequence that can inspire prosperity, which is really what people want. They're doing cooperative ventures in that region of Central Asia that can show people in countries a better way. So the other thing I will note, this is my final conclusion, and I have a small playlist, which also includes Governor Schweitzer of Montana, former governor, spoke. And then at about minute 40, he and I start having a Q&A, and that's kind of more representative of my wheelhouse and thoughts. But it was very focused on energy. And so scholars, experts, men of learning say that nothing further can happen in the Middle East with their recognition of Israel, having to war with Gaza right now. And that no further peace can be had. And I just say, why not? Isn't this a different time, a different place, a different state of technology, of humanity, of global conscience, of economic prosperity? Isn't that what the rest of the world wants? I think so. So that is what I will leave us with. And I hope you enjoy some of the conference videos, because I think they are an amazing offering of information. Thank you.